Hi, welcome back to Focal Point AFR Talk. Brian Fisher is my name. Program is Focal Point Network is AFR Talk. Hang on a sec, just unplugged myself. Give me a second. I am back. Here is that email I got from Bob. Now, this Bob that sent me the email, we were talking about Christianity Today having this completely feminized version of Christianity where they posted a column, God designed boys to play with dolls. And we talked about masculinity and femininity and how the church has feminized Christianity and feminized Jesus. Anyway, this is from a guy named Bob, and he is a PhD. So this guy is pretty sharp cookie. And Bob writes in and says, hi, Brian. By the way, if you want to send us an email during the program, focalpoint@afr.net, focalpoint@afr.net. We monitor that during the broadcast. Here's what Bob, this PhD, has to say. I'm not ashamed to admit that I played with dolls as a boy, and I am no worse for it. The dolls in question were about a foot tall, and they were dressed as soldiers and were called G.I. Joes. The hands were cupped perfectly to hold a firecracker as a hand grenade, which my friends and I took full advantage of. Firecrackers were also fun to fire off, just as the G.I. Joe's Jeep went over one hidden in the dirt. Try it, he says, and you will like it. Now, Jan, I don't think Jan, who's my call screener, I don't think Jan played with G.I. Joes when she was a kid. Now, Jan doesn't have a mic, but Jan...
She's shaking her head no.
She's shaking her head no. So, Jan, we're going to leave her out of this conversation. This is a guy's conversation. So, Rob and Jeff, I want to start with you, Rob. Did you play with dolls when you were a boy?
I did. I enjoyed the G.I. Joes. We used to drive golf tees through their chest and just all kind of blow them up like Professor Bob did there that wrote you the email.
Okay, so Jeff, are you as depraved as Rob, my director, is?
I hate to admit it, but yes, I used to make parachutes out of Kleenex and throw them off the roof.
How did those parachutes work?
And actually, I think I was practicing some of my rat drops.
Oh, that's right. You were just in training for the U.S. military.
That's right.
I mean, they should hire you. You're ready for that gig, man. You've had the practice. All right, so there's Bob and Rob and Jeff, all of us, and I have to include myself, all of us as boys played with dolls, only we called them G.I. Joe. Now, a couple of quick sound bites before we go to the phones. It turns out that Bob Woodward is not the only one that's gotten crosswise with the Obama White House that's on the enemies list. Here is Lanny Davis. Now, Lanny Davis, big-time guy in the Clinton administration. He was, I think, might have been White House counsel for a time. But Lanny Davis, card-carrying liberal, progressive, card-carrying Democrat, and he was on WMAL this morning, which is a leading radio station in Washington, D.C., and he said, look, what happened to Bob Woodward also happened to me. Let's listen.
That exact thing happened to me, and I haven't spoken of this before. But when I had my column, Purple Nation, originally in the Washington Times, with the editor, John Solomon, a really great reporter from the Post who tried to make the Times into a much stronger newspaper, he received a phone call from a senior Obama White House official who didn't like some of my columns. Even though I'm a supporter of Obama, I couldn't imagine why this call was made. And he did threaten, and the word I was told was the word threatened by this editor, that if he continued to run my columns, he would lose, or his reporters would lose, their White House credentials.
So he said, look, you're going to lose your credentials. We're not even going to let you in here. If you keep doing what you're doing, if you keep writing these kind of columns, you keep telling the truth, we're going to yank your press pass. You're not even getting in to the White House to have access to the press pool. So Bob Woodward, not the only member of the media that's gotten this kind of treatment. Here's Andrea Mitchell. You can't get any more orthodox from a liberal standpoint than Andrea Mitchell, NBC, and she agrees that what's going on here is a bad deal. Let's listen.
Woodward is correct in saying that the real danger here is that this is intimidating to reporters who are not Bob Woodward. I mean, there is no one better known in journalism, really, for investigative work than Bob Woodward, and the fact that he has done it for so many decades. And I recall back when I was a young reporter at Egan White House, and I had good sources and good relationships, but there was a chief of staff named Don Regan, and after I reported something on Iran-Contra very publicly, he called me and threatened me and said, "You're going to regret this," but said it in far worse terms, and using profane language. And as a young White House correspondent, I was really terrified by that, not fearing for my safety, just fearing for my career. He said he'd get me and that I'd be fired, and he was going to get to NBC. Of course, that didn't happen. So
thank you, Don Regan.
What a shock!
I never would have imagined that coming from Don Regan.
How could that have happened? But the bottom line is that the White House has to be able to take criticism and not be so aggressive in pushing back, because in fact, frankly, there isn't enough tough reporting.
So that's Andrea Mitchell agreeing, look, this is bad news. The real danger here is this is intimidating to reporters who aren't Bob Woodward. And what Andrea Mitchell is saying, look, this is what those mean, evil, spiteful Republicans used to do. And now Barack Obama is doing the same kind of stuff that those wascally Republicans tried to do to me. And they got to get tougher hides than that. Let's go to the phones, 888-589-8840. Let's go to Iris, Rockwall, Texas. Iris, you're on Focal Point. What's on your mind?
Hi, Brian. I just wanted to tell you that I know I don't know if you're familiar with the Parade magazine, but I've been reading it since I was a child. It's the periodical that comes with a lot of the major newspapers on Sunday.
Yeah, I'm familiar with it.
And it's become very liberal, I think, through the years. And they had a beautiful article, a whole-page article on on Mark Burnett and Roma Downing, and it wasn't slanted at all, and it gave them a real fair shake, told them, they said this Hollywood couple behind the miniseries The Bibles opens up about love, faith, and past tonight, and it was really nice, and they explained what their why they wanted to do the series, that they saw the Ten Commandments. They tried to get their teenagers to watch it, and it had become boring to them, and they wanted them to have something to watch that would be enjoyable even for teenagers and to update it. So I just thought it was neat to see this coming out of Parade, number one, and for it to be honest reporting in a liberal magazine.
Yeah. All right, Iris. Well, listen, I appreciate that very, very much. And I think all of us around here were just suspicious about what a mainstream cable network like the History Channel, which is, I think it's one of the top, it's in the top 10 for sure. Maybe it's in the top 5 of cable networks that people watch. And you're always a little bit suspicious. You're a little bit hesitant about what they're going to do with biblical themes. But what I'm hearing so far, and again, I have not seen anything other than the trailer, and there were 2 historical inaccuracies that I did pick up, but they're very common errors. They had Christ resurrected, by the way. So a very clear portrayal of the physical resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead, but they had the holes in Christ, the wounds in the palm of his hand. That's not where the wounds were. You can't crucify somebody by nailing the palm of their hand to the cross. The nails had to go through the wrists. So you had some kind of bone structure there to support the weight of the body. If you put the nails through the palm of the hand, everything will just kind of tear, and the crucified victim will just kind of fall right off of the cross. So that wasn't an error, but that's a mistake that a whole lot of people make. Most of the portrayals you see of Christ have the wound through his hand, and the Greek word for hand also included the wrist, by the way, in case you're wondering about that. Also had Christ with long hair. Now, I don't believe that Christ had long hair. 1 Corinthians 11:13, Paul is very clear, does not nature itself teach you that long hair is a disgrace to a man? Well, if nature taught Paul that, then nature certainly would have taught Christ that. So I don't believe that he or his disciples had long hair. My best guess is that they wore their hair short, just as the Romans did. Anyway, let's go to the phones. Let's go to Dana. Dana, welcome to Focal Point. What's on your mind?
Yes, sir. My concern today is not so much dealing with the actors, but I'm very, very concerned about the health care bill and the conditions therein for geriatric people.
Yeah.
That I saw something yesterday that said that, you've been told that the cutoff point was at 75 years old. And they said that is erroneous. And they gave chapter and verse where that age is 70 years old. not 75.
And it's a cutoff for what, Dana? What happens at age 70?
For treatment, to be able to go to a doctor.
So what? And you're saying this is in the health care bill, the Obama bill?
Yes, sir. I was told, I read somewhere that was the case. The writer put down, I believe, like page 42, and gave what paragraph or clause or however that thing is written, where that was contained.
Yeah. Well, and I do know, I'm not familiar with that, with a specific age cutoff in the bill, Dana. And again, 2,700 pages, so there certainly may be information in there that I have not read. So I don't know about a specific cutoff date, a specific age. But what I do know, and I appreciate your call, Dana, thank you for bringing that to our attention. I think there's no question that there's a real threat to health care for senior citizens in this bill. And all you have to do is look at what's happened in the UK to the elderly and what's happened to their health care in the UK. I'm looking at a story right here from the London Telegraph. Story about a guy named David Patrick, who was 69. This is under the age that Dana was talking about, was found dead. This is government health care. This is where we're headed with Obamacare. We're going to, if Obamacare isn't repealed, isn't cut back, we're going to read stories about like this in the United States. David Patrick, 69, was found dead, face down, in vomit and feces in a toilet cubicle in Colchester General Hospital 2 days after an elective gallbladder operation. Professor Roger Motson, then head of the clinical team treating him, blamed NHS targets for the confusion over who was accountable for the patient. Nobody could figure out whose responsibility he was, so they let him die in his own vomit at age 69. Ladies and gentlemen, that's coming to America with Obamacare. Back after the news. Stay with us.